Hello and welcome to Get to Know Them podcast. This is a podcast in which I'm gonna talk with some of the world's highest performers in order to learn more about them. I'm your host, Ken Shurigoy. I hope you enjoy. Hello, who do we get to know today?
Hi, my name is Megan Foley.
Hello, Megan. It's very nice to meet you. What would you say? Who is Megan and what do you do?
Well, I guess I identify myself as a triathlete. I've been a professional triathlete since, oh my gosh, 2015, which is crazy to think about that it's coming up on that amount of time. I am also a registered dietitian. I have my master's degree in sports nutrition and primarily work with endurance athletes, which is really fun, to help them to figure out their day-to-day fueling, their race fueling, right? Like, how do you manage getting through an Ironman? How do you fuel yourself through an Ironman? How do you fuel yourself through a 100-mile running race? I really love to strategize with people and figure out just what's possible to achieve those goals.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. Let's first touch on the triathlon part. Tell me, when and how did you start doing triathlon?
Well, I grew up in a very active family. Me and my brother, we both swam competitively. So swam in college, and when I graduated, really missed the structure of training. I just missed having that schedule. I missed seeing my friends at the pool. And so when I moved out to Utah for graduate school, I'd found this guy swimming at the pool. And we were talking, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in doing triathlons, and told him a little bit about myself. And he was like, oh, well, with your swim background, you would have a good chance of going pro. And I was like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like, I've never met you before, and now you're telling me that I would be like a pro triathlete. That's kind of weird. But, I really wanted to get into the sport and give it a shot. There was a race happening here in the US in Florida. It's the Claremont Draft Legal race that happens every year. And so I had about 5 months until that. And I figured, you know what? Might as well try, see what happens. So I went and I did that race, and I actually qualified for my elite license in that first weekend of racing. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm in and I'm doing this. I just really, really enjoyed it. And that was, draft legal specific racing, right? So really at that time I was 24, 25. There aren't a whole lot of opportunities to race draft legal racing unless you were racing in a professional field, at least at the age I was. And so fully committed to doing that, and really, really loved the experience of racing around the world, meeting a bunch of really cool people, and riding a bike really fast in circles.
That's very interesting. So did you then completely focus on the short distance, or did you also try, let's say, middle distance and full distance races?
I was pretty committed to short distance when I first started out. Um, I thought, potentially I would have a shot at the Olympics, right? That's the goal of most athletes who are young and see the Olympics on TV and think like, oh, maybe I could do that. So that was my goal initially when I was starting. And like I said, I really enjoyed like the draft legal aspect of racing, the crit style racing. I also had gotten into some of the more super sprint distance races. So in the US, we had a domestic super sprint series at the time that I was a part of for a few years. And then after that, I also got into some super league racing as well. So I just loved the fast and furious racing, like there's no strategy, you just go turn your brain off and see what happens. So that was my focus probably through the majority of my career, at least the beginning. And then I started experimenting more with some non-draft and middle distance a bit after COVID, I would say, and kind of stepped up and saw what that was all about.
And what about now? What position are you now in?
So now I'm not racing as frequently as I did at one point. It's not my sole focus anymore. But I still will jump into the occasional non-drafting race when it makes sense. I did St. Anthony's non-draft Olympic distance race earlier this year. Before Alcatraz was a T100 race, I would always go to that one as well, which if you ever get the chance to do Alcatraz, you should do it. It's very fun. It's a swimmer's race, but it's just a really great experience. And so I'll still jump into races when it makes sense, but it's not my priority anymore.
Okay, I understand. And guessing from what you said earlier, I guess that your passion right now is being a registered dietitian. Was that always your passion, or how did you come into this field?
Yeah, it's interesting. I decided that I wanted to be a dietitian based off of my own struggles with nutrition. And I think that's a common statement you'll hear from other dietitians as well. When I was in college, I was swimming competitively for my university and was just going through a lot of stress at home. Things weren't great. And because of that, I'd started unintentionally undereating. So I was just stressed and I would skip meals. I was still training at that time 20 to 24 hours a week in the pool. And I started having some negative health effects from that and realized, months down the line, hey, if I start eating better, I can get better at my sport. And that was a really cool moment for me of being like, okay, I can become a better athlete if I change the way that I eat, if I fuel the workouts that I'm doing and my health is in a good place. And so that made me want to help other people with that same goal, is just how do we get athletes to a point where they're healthy, or where they're not listening to the general messages in sport that we often hear, right? And I think when we start off of a basis of health, the entire sport gets better. So we see more consistent performances, we see better performances, and that's really where my focus lies now.
Yeah, that's really nice, and that's a really important message. But I would like to come back to something that you said earlier, because you said that you came to this realization that if you eat more and fewer sessions, you're gonna perform better. And I'm wondering, how did you come to this realization? Because that's often a hard thing to do, I would say.
Yeah, I at the time wasn't getting my period. It was just missing, and I was tired all of the time. And there wasn't anything, specific to the thing that really made me change was I had a friend who I was eating dinner with, and they looked at what I was eating and they were like, "Is that all that you're eating?" And it never even crossed my mind that it wasn't enough, or that everything that I was dealing with was from just the fact that I wasn't getting enough calories in. And so then I looked at what I was eating and I looked at everyone else around me and I was like, oh, well, maybe I do need to eat more. And it was when I started doing that I started feeling better. I started performing better. I got stronger. I was sleeping better. I didn't feel tired all the time. So I guess it wasn't like a self-induced moment. It took someone else saying something, even just this offhand comment about what I was eating that really sparked that difference. And then just experiencing the difference of how I felt, right? Like I didn't know that I could feel good day to day because what I was experiencing before was just the normal. So, that was the realization of just the change in habit actually brought that on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that it's really great that you came to this realization and made this change, because it obviously made your life so much better and it kind of shaped your future basically, because who knows what would happen if you didn't make that change, let's say so early in your life.
Right. It could have been an entire different trajectory, right? Like I could have gone down the route of stress fractures, or, maybe I wouldn't have even found triathlon because I would have just not enjoyed sport. It really was a really impactful change for me.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm wondering now, for somebody who is struggling with their nutrition, it can be either in life in general, not just around sports, or sport specific. You are obviously now working with clients like that. How does a client start, or how do you start working with somebody? What are the initial steps that you take with somebody to change the way they see the nutrition?
I think first you have to kind of get a good picture of what they're currently doing, right? You have to get their background, injury history, blood work. You have to have a good idea of where you're starting in order to move forward. And I think, we talked about this briefly before we started recording, is people like to go from 0 to 100, right? As far as making changes. And that's often not sustainable as far as progress goes. Like, you have motivation and you feel great for 2 weeks and then you get burnt out and you just go back to your old habits. So it's really about making small, doable differences consistently, and being able to do it consistency over time is what's going to allow you to make progress towards those goals. And that's not nutrition specific either. That can be triathlon or work or, whatever it is.
So we obviously know that we live in a culture that wants instant fixes and wants everything right now. So let's say I'm a client of yours and I come to you and I'm not satisfied with the fact that it's going to take me 6 months to come to my ideal weight, or similarly, that it would take years to become a, let's say, fairly good triathlete. How do you then deal with these kinds of clients?
Well, I think you have to come to the realization that there aren't shortcuts, right? Like, if you want to meet those goals, nobody's taken an elevator to the top. There's no way to become the best in your sport or to lose 20 kilos and maintain your health and doing that in a short amount of time. So you kind of have to have a come to Jesus moment and say, all right, well, if this is really what you want, this is what it takes. And we don't have options that are going to get you there any faster. So, this is the route that you have to go.
Yeah. And at the end, it obviously comes down to the client to make the decision if they're going to believe you and stick to your plan, or they're just going to stick to their own plan and their own conclusions, and God knows what happens next. But returning to the point you made earlier about your struggles, I am wondering, what has, in your opinion, been the biggest success you had so far in your life?
My gosh, the biggest success I've had in my life. I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. Wow. I, of course, as a professional athlete, you want to achieve big things, right? And I, especially during my career racing full time, never quite felt like my results were ever good enough. You kind of get in your head, is like, oh, well, I just got 6th place at this major event, but it wasn't the podium, or it wasn't first. And so I never celebrated those milestones that I made as I was going. And then I look back at everything that I've done over my career with nutrition, even with school, and I've come so far just based off of my ability to be consistent over time. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the fact that I'm able to sit here where I am today and just be excited about all the things that I've done, and know that I still have a lot of progress to keep making in sport if I choose to, in my career in nutrition. I now realize I'm excited and I'm proud of the steps that I've made in the past, and knowing that I can continue to do them in the future.
I think that's an awesome answer and awesome message also for all the people listening, because I think it's, from what I heard, you're focusing basically on the process, not on the outcomes. And I think that this is a mistake that a lot of people, including myself, make, because we focus on this goal we have in the distance, and we think that once we achieve that goal, we're going to be happy. But it turns out that we're not happy. We just set ourselves some bigger goal, and then we repeat this cycle, and we end up never being happy. But if we just focus on the process, like you mentioned, then we can just live day to day and believe that we're going to be better and we have so much more to give.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I'm now at a point in my life where I find joy in the process. And so I'm really excited about that. And working with athletes too, is if you don't enjoy the process, the goals probably aren't going to get there. You probably won't ever reach those goals if you're not enjoying the route along the way. So yeah, you said it better than I did.
Yeah, one of the rare times that this happens. No, but obviously I agree because I'm an athlete myself, a triathlete, and I know that when you have so many training sessions and such long training sessions and hard training sessions, like you can only force yourself to do something for a period of time. You're not going to train consistently for a year, 2 or 3 if you hate doing something. And yeah, like you said, you just gotta love the process and then the outcome will come.
Yeah.
But inevitably, we find ourselves in some difficulties in life. And I'm wondering what keeps you going when the things get hard for you.
Man, you're really hitting with the tough questions today. um, I think, it comes back to the people that I care about, my family, my partner, and knowing that the things that I do, I really enjoy. And I feel like the future is going to continue to be more positive and positive. Like it's going to continue to get better and better. And so, just remembering like, you have bad days, but that doesn't mean the future is shit. Like there's so much to look forward to still in life. And I feel excited about that.
That's awesome. And what is one thing that you're currently looking forward?
Ooh, well, a couple of weeks ago, so a little bit of backstory. My partner and I have lived in the same apartment. We're renters. We've lived in the same place for a while, and we found out that we have to move. They're selling the rental unit that we live in. And so we were forced to make this big life change and find a new place to live. And in the moment, it felt entirely stressful and overwhelming. And now I just can't wait for it to happen. Like sometimes picking up your life and moving to a new place, even though it's within the city of Salt Lake, I will say that. So we're not moving that far. But sometimes when you're forced to make big changes, it can actually like feel really good after you do it. It's kind of that middle ground when you're not sure what you should do yet, where I feel like the stress is. And once you make those choices to commit, then I just go back to feeling excited. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to start a new chapter again in a new place.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. And I obviously wish you good luck with the move and getting settled in the new place.
Yeah, definitely. I almost relate it to like, because I've had a few friends and clients go through this recently of if you're working with a triathlon coach and you're not sure if they're a good fit anymore, and you're like, oh, do I stay with them? Do I leave? What do I do? What does this mean for my career? Right. And there's always this like stress in that moment of like, well, what's the best choice? And then once you make the choice, you feel so much better. It's kind of a similar situation to that, I guess, is like you make the choice and then the stress goes away.
Yeah, I completely understand that because sometimes I find myself dwelling on the choice for so long that this time that I can't decide is so torturous that I end up just picking something so I just don't have to think about it anymore. So I
Right.
completely know what you mean.
Yeah, totally.
But now I'm wondering, what is one thing that you wanted to do for a long time but just haven't done it yet?
Oh man. Um, I guess if we're talking triathlon specific, I would love to go and race Noosa Tri. I think that's definitely a bucket list race. That one's still on my list. I won't retire officially until that one I've done. That's another Olympic non-distance triathlon race. Um, I think a big one would just probably traveling as well. Like I've gotten to do a lot with triathlon, but generally when you travel for triathlon, you're seeing the hotel room and then you see the race and then not much else. So bucket list would be to travel even to some of the places that I've already been to, but like haven't really seen. So Singapore or Switzerland, and actually like get to enjoy the place and environment and not be there for just a very one, how do I say this? Not be there and just only see the race.
Yeah, I understand that. And then my next question is, when are you gonna do it?
Oh no. I should make a 5-year plan, I guess. If I yeah, yeah, you're really challenging me. I haven't actually thought about when I would make those things happen, but I guess I probably should, huh? That would make it more solidified in the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that experiences vary with age. And I think that when you said that you want to race Nusa, I think that you would do much better now that you're still young and fit and everything. And who knows what's going to happen in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, but hey, I'm not betting against myself. Like I've been able to get better over the last 10 years. Who says without a little consistency, I can't continue to do that? That would put me at what, 45? There's some pros still racing at 45. How old was Jan? Jan's around is early to mid 40s, right? I'm not
Yeah,
saying that no, I should clarify that.
yeah, he
But
won the PTO US Open at 42, I think.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then we have some athletes like Didi Grisbauer who are well above 50, I
right,
think, and are
right.
still racing. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once again, need to state I'm not saying I'm anything like Jan, but I'm just saying there's hope for some of us to continue to get better, even into our 40s.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if we fuel ourselves very good.
Exactly. With the fueling is avoiding injuries, right? And being able to train consistently, being able to sleep well and recover. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and related to this is my next question, because I want to know if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
So, when people ask me what my favorite meal is, I do have a standard answer, and that is a cheeseburger and a kale salad. But it has to be both. I don't know why, but it has to be both. Would I want to eat a cheeseburger and a kale salad for every meal? Probably not. That might be a lot of red meat to have that 3 times a day for the rest of my life. Um, but maybe something similar. Like I love egg toast or um, some type of sandwich, like a banh mi. Oh, banh mi, I could definitely do. Because then you get like the pickled vegetables, you have bread, you have protein. So that's a pretty balanced one. I'd say that's probably my answer.
Yeah, I think that's a nice answer. And what is your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, I I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I can get into some reality TV shows. And I know they're terrible. I watch them and I'm like, oh, these are a waste of time, and yet I still watch. So that would probably be the guilty pleasure.
Yeah, but you obviously need something to relax your mind and just switch off, not think about anything. And you find that it reality shows. Some other people find it in I don't know what. But yeah, I think it's a nice answer.
Yeah, it definitely gives you that moment to switch off, right? Like you don't have to, the stress is gone. You get to watch these people squabble over whatever issues they're having. So it's uh again, I'm embarrassed to admit it, but yeah, that's probably it.
Okay. And what would you say? What is one thing that annoys you or makes you angry?
Hmm. I think one thing that I find frustrating is when um it's normal to complain, right? When things aren't going right or you have a rough day or whatever. But I get annoyed when people complain but then don't take steps to get out of the situation that's causing their complaints, right? So, if something's bothering you and it's bothering you for a long time, I believe that you should take action to fix it. And so my pet peeve is when people just complain and complain, but then don't do anything to change it. So their situation never gets better.
Yeah, I understand that. And I have to admit that I'm sometimes guilty of it. So I think that is something that I have to think about and improve on in the future.
Yeah, we all are to some extent, right? Like I said, it's normal to complain sometimes and have rough days or whatever it is, but things don't get better unless you make changes. So it's all about just taking those steps to make things better.
Yeah, exactly. What would you say? What is the one thing that you still want to achieve in life?
Um, I still have, I would, if I had unlimited amounts of money, I would probably go to school forever. I love learning. I just learning new subjects, new topics. I love getting deeper into the field of nutrition. And so, that's definitely something that I hope to be able to continue through the rest of my life. Um, that's a huge one. And then, maybe someday start a family, have kids. But yeah, I would say both of those equally.
Yeah, those are both nice goals. And
Yeah,
I think that you're very well capable of achieving both of those goals.
yeah, absolutely. It's just figuring out the timing, right? For both.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we mentioned it before a bit, but you're now working with Fuelin, if I understand
Yes.
correctly. Could you maybe explain a bit what Fuelin is and how people can find value in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fuelin is an app that's available for Apple phone users. And what we do is we take your training data. So if you're using Training Peaks, TriDot, similar platform, along with your anthropometric data, so height, weight, and whatever your goals are. So performance, body composition, gain weight, lose weight, whatever it is. And we give you a fueling plan to help you meet your goals. So the purpose of Fuelin is really to help people achieve optimum health and performance. So the focus for us has always been to make sure that you're able to get the most out of yourself in training, to meet whatever goals you have, so weight loss, weight gain, weight maintenance, and to make sure that your health is in check too. So for a lot of athletes in the sport of triathlon, we use Fuelin to make sure you're getting enough, which is a very different mindset than something like MyFitnessPal, right? Where it's saying, oh, you only have 1,400 calories to hit today, or you exercise this much, and so you get this much extra calorie, right? The focus there is different, and it's really, really valuable for people because they're able to see their performance change over time when they're fueling properly. And we also give people the tools to say, okay, based off of my training, I know I need this much fluid per hour when I'm racing, or based off of my training, when I've been able to tolerate, I know I can handle 95 grams of carb per hour, right? So it just gives people a lot more confidence going into races as well. And like I mentioned, puts their health first as far as the basis of performance.
Yeah, that's great. And for people who are might not that into nutrition and don't understand things, is there also an option to talk with somebody like a dietitian to discuss all these plans and how the things work?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a team of coaches, myself, Scott Tyndall, who's the founder. He worked with Holly Lawrence and Jan when he was competing in his last year of triathlon. And then our other coaches, Dr. Alan McCubbin, Dr. Alan McCubbin, who's a sports dietitian based out of Australia, whose focus has always been electrolyte needs for endurance athletes, which is really cool to talk about with him. So we are the people behind the screen on the other side of the app, there to answer your questions. We also work one-on-one with clients if they want to meet face-to-face every week and strategize as far as, what products do we use? What are good meal suggestions for you? Like we have a team of really qualified people to help our athletes perform.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that this is really a very important thing because some people say that nutrition is the fourth discipline in triathlon, and nailing that is sometimes very difficult. I mean, we even see professionals like vomiting and having diarrhea in the middle of Ironmans, and some people might finish an Ironman in 7.5 hours despite of that, but we are not those kinds of people. So we need more help in dialing our nutrition. And I'm gonna put the link to the app into the show notes so people are gonna find it and hopefully try it out to get their nutrition sorted.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting with triathlon, right? Because in my perspective, nutrition is important for all sports, right? But in triathlon, especially long distance or even middle distance, you can't finish the race unless you take on some nutrition during, right? There's just no way around it. So the importance is heightened a little bit more than something that takes 20 minutes to complete or whatever it is. So it's really fun to be able to strategize with people and figure out like how do we make this happen? How do we do this?
Yeah, exactly. And I am one of those people who had a period in their life when I trained without fueling, basically. I always trained early in the morning and I just woke up, started training, didn't eat anything before, didn't eat anything during training. And I mean, you can do something without fueling, but you can't come very far and you can't complete those important hard sessions that keep moving you forward and progress your fitness level. So I think that this is a very important message and a very nice app that, like I said previously, very useful for many people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what people come to realize is nutrition allows you to do more, right? Like people who have these massive goals of achieving great things in sport or whatever it is, you need fuel in order to make those training sessions happen. And those training sessions are what allow you to get better. And so nutrition can really be a tool to performance because it allows you to unlock that potential of becoming a better athlete. And it's funny because of course nutrition is important, but the caveat is like just eating like Lionel Sanders isn't going to turn you into Lionel Sanders, right? And probably that's not the right message for everyone is like, okay, well, here's what the pro's doing. This is what you should do too. But, there's an individual approach for everyone and it is a piece to performance, but it can't be the end all be all.
Yeah, very well said. And I think that this is a nice point to slowly steer this conversation towards the end. And at the end, I let my guest leave a question for the next guest that is coming on the show. My previous guest was Olivia Ditzel. She's a professional triathlete from the US, and she wants to know what was the biggest mistake or failure in your past that you think has shaped you in the person who you are today?
Oh man. Um, I think it goes back to what I said earlier as far as not celebrating the steps that I had made towards getting better when I was really involved in professional triathlon and trying to make the national team, trying to make the Olympics, right? And never celebrating the successes that I had. And that leading to a lot of burnout and just unhappiness. And so being able to look back and realize those mistakes of like, hey, I actually did a lot and I'm really proud of what I've done. I think that was probably the lesson that I learned from that experience is just, you have to celebrate yourself as you go. You have to enjoy the process. So that's probably what I've learned.
Okay, that's a nice answer. And I think that this is a lovely message. What is your question for the next guest?
Oh man. Um, what is one memory that you have that you would like to be able to revisit and why?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. And I'm looking forward to hearing the answer. And before we really end this show, I would like to ask one more question because I think that you have a very unusual pet. Can you tell me more about it?
I do. I have a Russian tortoise. His name is Walter. My to walk into traffic about 12 years ago and just decided to keep him. So we don't actually know how old he is because he was full grown when my partner found him. He's at least in his early 30s, if not older. So he's we call him Old Man Walt because he's potentially older than us. We don't know how long he's going to live. I never thought that I would be a tortoise mom. Like I never saw that in the cards for myself, but he's a really wonderful pet. actually they're really easy to travel with if you're someone who's on the road a lot because he hibernates. So I highly recommend, but as I mentioned before, he's very old. They are pets for life. You have to write them into your will because they will live forever. So if you're interested in getting a tortoise, just know it's a commitment at least for 60, 70 plus years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And besides the obvious answer, doesn't he want to run away, or how do you keep him from running away?
Well, he knows how good he has it. No, but he lives in our backyard and it's completely fenced in. So there's no way for him to get out or escape. Um, I would be concerned if our yard was not fenced in because he likes to bulldoze around everything and he would probably make his way out somehow.
Okay, that's very interesting. And that's something, yeah, that I saw on Instagram, and I knew immediately that I have to ask you about it.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Like I mentioned, I never thought I'd be a tortoise owner, but he can recognize me. So if he sees me come outside into the yard, he'll run as fast as a tortoise can run and then come and stand on my feet and look up at me. So they do make very good pets.
That's awesome. It was also awesome talking to you, Megan. I had real pleasure talking to you, and I'm wondering if people want to follow you, know more about you, maybe ask you some questions about nutrition or triathlon or about water. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks so much. I really enjoyed this talk. People can find me on Instagram. My handle is Mega Foley, so my full name without the N. And if you have questions about nutrition or Fuelin, you can always reach out and email me. My email is megan@fuelin.com.
Okay, that's awesome. And like I said, thank you for saying yes and coming on the show. It was awesome talking to you, and I hope that people find it interesting, valuable, and take something from it.
Yeah, thank you so much.